Hi, and welcome to my channel, Laura's Library Card. So today's video, I'm going to be discussing my 2022 reading plans. I hope to divide this video up into sort of 3 sections, so feel free to check the description for timestamps. The first section I want to talk about sort of a peek behind the curtain, a little bit of my thoughts on my process and planning for choosing books, what to read. The second section will be anticipated titles and authors I hope to read in the year of 2022. And the third section will cover some goals. So let's just dive right into our first section, which is sort of my thoughts and process for making plans. The short version is that I just am not really a big long-term goal setter or planner. So, the end, cue outro music. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, I'm just not a huge planner. I like to kind of sit down at the start of each month and make a quick list of the book club books for that month and any readathons I hope to participate in that month. And then kind of the rest of the books that I read throughout that month are just supplemented to those ones that I'm primarily trying to focus on. And so I'm just not a huge planner. I don't think very far out beyond a few weeks at a time. The other element that is a huge factor that sort of restricts a lot of my planning is that I'm primarily a library user. I purchase very few of my books. So unless it's something I really, really want or absolutely cannot wait for, which happens like once a year, I use the library. So sometimes it can be hard to get a hold of very popular books or brand new books because there's just not that many copies, or they're very popular, or everyone's trying to get a hold of them. So the library does curtail a lot of my accessibility to the books, as I have chosen to not make purchases really. And the last element that also isn't a factor in how I plan what I read is that I want to read books that are highly rated, highly recommended, or that are popular, basically. It's very easy for me to come across lots of recommendations, especially since I've joined BookTube. I have a very long want to read list on Goodreads. That is my functions as my TBR. But I don't want to waste time on books that I don't have any clue about. So the idea of picking up a list of new releases for 2022 is not necessarily going to be particularly helpful for me, because I want to basically like not waste my time on something that I don't think will be very good. So I would rather honestly wait to hear a bunch of glowing positive reviews before I pick a book up than kind of take a chance on a brand new release. So that is sort of my struggle with making big plans, and for sort of those reasons that I just listed, it's hard for me to come up with a list of most anticipated new release books for 2022. I also, especially pre-BookTube, but kind of now, I never know where to look for this information. I don't keep tabs on books that I want to read and as to what the release dates are. I tend to just kind of always be a little bit behind the curve because I wait until I hear buzz about a book, and usually that happens after it's already been published. So I do have a couple titles and a couple authors that I know I want to read this year, and that's why I'm diving into part 2. I do know there is another book by Emily Henry coming out this year, I think called Book Lovers. I really liked Beach Read. I less liked People We Meet on Vacation, so I'm going to give Emily Henry another chance in 2022. There is a new, much anticipated, long awaited for book in the Immortals After Dark series by Cressley Cole. This is the Monroe book. I am not currently all the way caught up on the Immortals After Dark series, so I do intend to continue to read that series, but that is a title that's coming out in 22 that has hit my radar that I would love to get to, but I have a few more books to get to before I get there. Ali Hazelwood is coming out with a number of books this year. The title I have is Love on the Brain. I liked The Love Hypothesis well enough to give Ali Hazelwood another shot. I've also heard somewhere else that she's actually coming out with a number of novellas this year, so I'm going to try to keep an eye out for some of her new titles or title that comes out this year in 2022, and I would like to read that. I read It Happened One Summer in 2021. This is by Tessa Bailey, and the second book or companion book to that series is coming out in 2022, Hook, Line, and Sinker. I'm looking forward to jumping back into that world. I think we're following the other sisters romance, so I'm looking forward to that. I think there are 2 different books scheduled to come out by Rachel Lynn Solomon, who wrote The X Talk, and I quite like The X Talk. I feel like it got some mixed reviews, but I definitely am wanting to keep that author on my radar. And then other people who I think have books coming out this year are TJ Klune, Juliet Cross, Casey McQuiston. Those are authors and titles that I hope to keep an eye out for that are coming out in 2022. Regarding not new releases, I know the most recent Outlander book just came out in fall of 2021. I honestly cannot really remember if I ever finished book 8 and therefore would be able to go into book 9. I've been doing a very slow reread. I think I'm in the middle of book 7 right now. Well, I'm not sure. But I've kind of like hit this slog that's hard to get through that I remember from the first time reading it. So I do hope to eventually get to the new Outlander book, but I have no idea when that's going to happen. I was intrigued by a number of the Goodreads romance nominees and finalists, so I added a number of those to my TBR. I bought a number of the Sweat and Soap manga, I think the first like 7 volumes, so I kind of want to get to those in 2022. I also have been taking down lists of authors that I hope to get to. I was hoping to try out Anna Huang, Chloe Leese. I've only read 1 or 2 books by Colleen Hoover, but she gets recommended so much. So many people either love her or hate her, so I wanted to read more by Colleen Hoover. I have only read, I think, 1 book by Kennedy Ryan, and I definitely want to read more there. I want to dive into some backlists by TJ Klune, backlists for Olivia Dade and Talia Hibbert, and Tessa Bailey, maybe Tessa Dare. Overall, transitioning into goals, I do want to increase the number of thrillers. From what I have read this year, I really enjoyed the thrillers I read this year, even though a lot of them I said were not thrilling. And I basically just know there's so much love out there for mystery thrillers. And I did include the Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires as one of my top books of the year. So that was kind of a big surprise for me. So I would like to increase my thrillers. Try out Riley Sager. I just know there's so much love out there for thrillers and suspense that I want to increase that because I've had a good time and I want to find sort of what works for me and what doesn't work for me in that genre. I also want to be a little bit better about reading nonfiction. Historically, I've always really enjoyed reading nonfiction, but in the year of 2021, I think I only read 7 or 8 total nonfiction books, and a lot of those were in the second half of the year. So I want to be better about reading at least 1 of nonfiction a month. With regard to hard and fast goals, I did set my Goodreads goal for total number of books to be 100 again. I have surpassed that for the last 2 years, but I don't want to really, really pressure myself, and I feel like that's very achievable based on what I'm currently doing in my life. So that is sort of the really only hard goal that I've set. I do want to, the other kind of vague goal that I want to set is I just want to have more fun in my life. Have more fun in my life. That's the goal. Personal and professional and, reading wise as well. This I think could translate into reading more manga, DNFing more quickly, or being a little bit more ruthless when it comes to DNFing, even if it's just kind of a middle of the road, because I feel like my average rating for 2021, even though I've kind of given up on ratings to some extent, I feel like overall throughout the whole year, my average rating was a 3.75 stars, which is good. That's good. I'm on average pretty much really enjoying what I'm reading, but I want more 4 and 5 star reads. I don't think I had any books that were romances that I gave 5 stars to in 2021, except for Red, White, and Royal Blue, which is one of my all-time favorite books that I reread. So I want to increase my reading of books that I super enjoy, which sometimes you can't always predict that and know that going in. But I just want to increase my fun. So that I think is the goal there. And I Also, that means I want to participate in readathons that I think are fun. I have participated in the tropical readathon a few times and really enjoyed that. Hopefully we do another round of Love in the Night readathon where we read paranormal romance. And this sort of have more fun goal also translates into content for you guys, because I really want to focus on making enjoyable content throughout this year. I want to enjoy the making and prepping and making of it behind the scenes, and I want it to be content that you guys also enjoy. So I want to have fun with my channel this year, and not put quite so much pressure on myself to make the video that everyone else is making, or to get things out at a certain time, etc., etc. And I think my last sort of vague nebulous goal is I want to give my books that I read a little bit more deliberate thought. I feel like I frequently dive so quickly into my next read, partly because I'm not very good at planning and time management. I'm working on it. But I really feel like I want to gain something out of every book that I read, and that can just be had a fun time here for the sexy smut, and like that's awesome. And if that's what I take away, that's great. But I want to kind of take a little bit more time to ingest and think on the books that I read, and I'm hoping that that will maybe reflect a little bit more in my videos. We have now reached the end of my video. That was everything I planned to say. I'm hoping that 2022 will be an awesome reading year. I am looking forward to a bunch of those different authors that I already listed. If you have something that you are super excited to get to, whether it is a series or a 2022 release, please leave that down in the comments. I'm always looking for new recommendations. Maybe you've already heard some buzz about something, or you've already read an arc about of a book that's new this year. Or if you are sort of like me and not a great planner, maybe leave me down in the comments your favorite book from 2021, because like I said, I'm always looking for amazing recommendations, and something that someone gave 5 stars to is a great start. So thank you so much for watching this video, and don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Thanks. Bye.